Hello, welcome to this tutorial on Models Dimba, and today we are going to continue with our previous octagon structure and we'll get started right away. If you take a look on the screen, you can see what we did previously, and we want to reinforce or add more steel members on this octagon structure that I said it's so ideal for churches or a building that is unable to hold a huge number of a congregation. Now, without wasting time, I want to copy this column here. I'll select on this column, on this annex. We'll start with this annex side, then I'll snap on that spot, and I want to pull it and place it right there on this grid. So if I come to navigate here and I want to rotate this, remember to rotate. I'll repeat this. Remember to rotate, you have to come to view, then you come to navigate. Under this drop down arrow, click on that, then pick the first option by clicking with the left button on your mouse, then pick the rotation point. I want to rotate it about this point here, select on that, then press my left button on the mouse and hold and turn that like that, simply, and you can rotate that. So if I rotate this, you can be able to see this column is not facing the right direction, so we have to give it a proper direction. So we have to reorient its position. Now its position to align with the others. So what do? We are going to double click on it, and since this angle between this grid line and this grid line is 45, we can confirm that by activating the assembly. Then we double click on this, and this will bring this radial grid here, and we can confirm that this is 45. So we are going to divide 45 by 2, and we can get the angle that will help us reorient this to enable it sit in the best position as other columns. Now I'm going to double click on it once again. So once I've double clicked on that, I'm going to feed that angle here under in position on rotation section. So I'll either prefix that angle with a negative sign, or just leave it plain 22.5. So first of all, let me just prefix it with the 22.5, and you see it's adding more sharpness in terms of angle. So I'll get rid of that negative sign. I just type plain 22.5, and that should put it in the best position or the best orientation. So you can see that it is now given the best orientation or position like other columns. Now the next thing, I'm going to pull this rafter after selecting on it, and remember, prior to copying it, make sure you disable this assembly, because the moment you try to pull it, will pull the whole structure together, because we used a tool called array, so everything is defined as assembly. So I'll select on this rafter. I select this rafter, and prior to selecting, make sure you position your model into a position that will help you pick on it on accurate position. So I'll go ahead and select on this rafter, right click and come to copy, and I want to copy it from this position right here. I'll move all the way to this column and place it in exact position similar to the one that we used to pick it from the other column. Now I'll snap it on that spot. So here again, we have the same problem we had with this column. So we'll approach it with the same technique. So I'll select on it, then right click and come to special move. I'll pick the option rotate. So I'm going to define my rotation point. I want it to rotate along this line, around this line. I'm going to define here. We have options here. We can leave it to rotate along the z-axis, but we are not sure how far will it be off the point we are actually working with. So I prefer defining our own rotation point, so I'll go with the line. So I want this member to rotate along this line here. I'm going to define at that angle. Now I've snapped on that spot. I'm going to define that line all the way to the bottom end here, and click move and click OK. Then we move up and check whether it has moved in the best position. It's okay, but it is not attaching itself to the member we intended to, because we've not placed that member. So we'll jump that step and we'll come to it later on, though you've picked some knowledge on how we can do that if we get to that step. Now I'm going to place the base plate for this column here, and I'll go all the way and type. I'll close this and click on this button here for applications and component, and pick on the base plate. So I'm going to place my base plate here for the first, prior to making any move or any step. So I'll go ahead and select on this member, and I'll place my base plate at the bottom end here. Right click and come to redraw to remove this symbol of active macro. So if I zoom out, you can see you can see an addition of a grid line, the one that we placed in hiding. Let's hide this. Select on it, right click and come to hide. We'll hide it because it is not part of this. So remember, any moment you refresh your model or you redraw your model, it will reappear, and that should not disturb you. You can either delete it. So I'm going to place a beam here at the Eave here. So I'll come to steel here and pick on the beam, and I'll snap on that spot here, on the top there. Then I want to stretch all the way to this member. I want to reinforce these columns, to support these columns. So I'll right click, and I want to snap right at the center right there, and I'll come to navigate and rotate this and check whether this is in line or sitting well with our structure. Now I'll select on it, then right click. I'll select on it once again, select on it. I'll come to special move, and I want to give it a slight offset of this cap plate. And what I'm going to do is just to feed here negative 80 or 80 millimeter off the point of the top point, and click OK. Click OK. After clicking move, then I'll try to offset it by 2 meters. We need another one at far end here. I'll select it and come to copy here, click linear, and I want to move it down by 2 meters. I'll feed 2 meters here, but remember, we're moving down against the z-axis. You can see up here, or down here, means we have to prefix our dimension with a negative sign because we are moving in a neutral direction. Now I'll go ahead and click copy and click OK. Right click and come to interrupt to terminate that command. Let's get rid of this dialog box because it is now an obstruction, besides helping us in accessing the best tools that is enabling our speed in creating a model Tekla structures. Now I want to pull in this rafter here and bring it close here. What I'm going to do, it's very simple. What I'm going to do here, I'll bring it closer and select it. Right click and come to copy. I'll select copy, and I'll snap on that spot, and I want to copy it in the same spot on a different column that we placed here previously. So I'll snap on that spot. But once I've placed it on there, you can see we're having the same problem we had previously. So we have to reorient this or align this rafter to be the same with others. So I'll go ahead and select on it, right click and come to special move here, and I'll click rotate. So I'm going to define a line of rotation for this rafter. So we start from that spot and move all the way to the bottom end here to complete our definition for a rotation line. I'll snap on that spot and click move and give it an OK by clicking on OK button, and move up and check whether we've moved it or it has aligned itself properly. So we have it in the best position here. So what we are going to do here, it's very simple. We'll check this member. This is 4.6 140/39, and we need a different size of this. So we'll click this radio button to reduce this rafter size profile. I'll click on that radio button here, and this will take me straight to profile catalog. I'll be able to select here. Remember, we are working with the South African standard, and I'll scroll up and snap on that spot and click that and click modify, and there we are. I've picked that member. We have it here. So I'm going to place a hunch here, and prior to placing a hunch there, let me first of all define the points where I intend to place another member on top of this rafter, or in between this rafter, in between these two rafters. So I'll come to edit, I'll come to points here, I'll pick online, the first option here. We use that to get the midpoint between 2 points here. So I want to get a midpoint between this point and the next point I'm going to define here, that point. There we are, and click apply and give it an OK. And you need that point, that is the point we wanted to create. So we need a similar point on along this rafter. How do we create that? We come to view and come to navigate here and rotate this. Remember to rotate, rotate with mouse, pick your rotation point, press your left button and hold on your mouse, and you'll be able to rotate it. Now I'll come here and rotate that, right click and terminate your command, and I'll come to edit and click this drop down arrow. On that, I'll pick the first option. This option, it helps you to locate the midpoint between 2 points. I'll pick on that spot, and I want a midpoint between that point and a point I'm going to define here. I'm not able to see it, but remember, the moment you deactivate this command and jump to rotation, that point command is terminated. Exactly what is going to happen to us here, because I'm not able to see the point of location here. I can either do another trick by pressing Ctrl+2, but I'm not able to change this, to convert this to a transparency, because it is one component as defined by array polar tool. So I just bring back to solid state. So I'll come to view here. Let me come to view, because I want to see the points, my second point, but I'm not able to see my second point. Let me just turn it slightly right there. Let me close this. So remember, we activated the point creation, but we were tempted to rotate our model for us to be able to see the next point. So our point command got terminated. Now let's start it afresh. We'll come to point, pick online, and we'll zoom close and snap on that spot. We can start from that spot and move all the way. Make sure you snap accurately on the best point. I've located a point here in between these two, and it is not accurate at all. What are we doing wrong? It's very simple. Let me turn that round. Let me turn that round, and I want to start defining my point from this position. Make sure your point locations are accurate. Zoom close, zoom much closer, and locate your point right there. Apply and give it an OK by clicking on OK button, and we have a point here. So I'm coming to view, navigate and rotate this. I'll rotate this. These 2 points we are going to use, or is going to help me create a member here that will be connecting this rafter. So I'll come to steel, pick on the steel beam, and move all the way from that spot and to this spot. But you see, it's wrongly placed. Even if you double click on it and pull it to a better position, it will still look awkward. Now what we are going to do is just change our XYZ plane, and we'll come to view here, come to work plane tool, and place your work plane tool on top here, on top there, or you can place it here. So we'll get back to steel and place a beam here once again. Try to place a beam here because we want this beam to have an inclination similar to these rafters. Now I'll snap on that spot, and still it's not good, but slightly on the way we expect it to be. Exactly, it is the way we want it to be. So we've placed a beam here, and we'll zoom close, and we want to place another beam here. come to steel and come to steel beam here, and I'll snap on that spot, move out, and we'll target the next or the opposite beam or rafter, and we'll snap right there. I'll come to navigate, and if you take a look, it's taking a different position, which is not good. So just double click on it and come here. We'll come here and try to check the angle of inclination. We cannot correct that unless we come to view and change our XYZ plane. So we are going back to steel and come to steel beam. We'll come to view here, come to navigate, and we'll rotate this and target the bottom end here where we expect our beam to start from. We'll turn it around and target the other end, right click and come to that spot. That's where I want it to be on. So this time around, you see, once you have repositioned or you have repositioned or reoriented your XYZ plane, you see this beam is not inclined as it was before. Now I'll double click on it once again and come to come to position. Then I'll target the third option at depths. At this end, at this point, it is located at the middle point. So we want to move it slightly down. You select behind option, and that will take it slightly down right there. So in here again, we'll give it a slight offset of 80 millimeter. We select on that. Once you select on it, we'll click move. Then we move it slightly down by 80 millimeter. Then again, select on it, come to special copy, and you take it down slightly with 2 meters. There it is, 2 meters so high. We'll slightly bring it up, and you want to change this member to, we don't need to change that. Right click and come to special copy and come there. We'll give it 1500. 2 meters so high, we'll give it 1500 right there. So there we are. And what we have now, we've added some members here. So we are forgetting another beam. We're supposed to add a supporting beam at the eave here on the annex section of this octagon structure. Then move all the way, come to view, come here, and we'll snap right on top of this. Right on top of that. In here, we've not placed our haunch for this member. What we are going to do, we'll come to applications and component here and type haunch, and we'll target that one, and we want to connect this to that. Click OK, redraw, and you can check that has been created. A haunch has been created there. So the next is end plate. We want to put an end plate right there. So we'll double click on this. Fortunately, we have our presets in place. We don't have a preset here. Let's check whether we can have one here. Do we have one? No. We have one here, and then we can go ahead and click load, modify, apply, and accept that. So we want to connect this to this. So we've placed a connection right there. So if you come to navigate, you can see we've connected this rafter to that beam. So we are going to copy this from this far end here. Press Ctrl 2 so that you can be able to see this far end. Right click and come to copy, and we'll snap on that spot and move all the way and copy it on the same spot right here. Press Ctrl 4, and that will take you back to the previous view. Then this is how it looks here. This is how it looks. Now let's get started again in populating the members that we just added on our structure. Let's hide this before we make a step. So we have this in place, and now we are going to close this and come back to applications and component, and we need a tool called array tool. We'll just double click on that, and we'll move step by step. And prior to doing that, we'll make sure that our XYZ plane is in the best position. We'll place it right there, and we'll go ahead and hide that grid line. So come here and invoke again the polar array tool, and we'll select the components that we intend to populate along this octagonal structure. Let me rotate this. Bring it close by rolling your middle button on the mouse. You bring it, take it in, take it out. You press your left button on the mouse and hold. You can now move your mouse, and that's how it's done. Now, I want to populate this column first. So what I'm going to do, I've invoked this polar array tool. I'll select on this, and prior to doing that, make sure the select components button is active. So I'll select on this, then press my middle button on the mouse to accept the selection. So I'll define this spot as my first point. I'll select on it. Then I'll snap on that midpoint because they're the same position, midpoint. As I want to define that to be my second point, and I'll come here and define this point as my third point. So you'll be able to see all this has been populated accurately in similar positions all round. If you turn it around like this, you can be able to see that. So we'll do the same thing with the rafters. So I'll double click on it. I'm picking one by one so that you get the concept here. Now, suppose if you are familiar with this, I would have selected everything and give one click and everything is populated all over. So I'll select this, press my middle button on the mouse, and I'll define my first point as that, my second point as that point. Zoom close and make sure you're accurate in selecting your points. Then my third point will be here, will be right there. So you find yourself seeing this in position, but they are not attached at all to that member. Means we jumped a step, but still not a problem. What we're going to do will catch up with everything we've skipped. Now we are going to this step. I'll invoke that command, select that beam, select this beam, select that beam, select this beam, and that. So I'll press my middle button on the mouse, and I'll define this point, that point as my first point, and define this point as my second point right there, and move all the way and define this point as my third point right there. Make sure you snap on accurately on those positions, and click OK. Right click and click interrupt, and you find that all populated all round. So what I'm going to do, right click and redraw. And remember, every time you redraw, it pulls in our previous grid line that we tried to hide so that it is not seen, creating confusion with this octagonal grid. So we'll keep on giving it a kick off our position of work. Now I'll come to navigate and try to turn it around like that, and you can see there's connection all over on that and the other sections. Now let's populate this, and prior to populating this, make sure you are in a position to mark or point or define your points, your parameters for populating all these members to all points to all positions that they intend to be on. Now I'll invoke this command once again and select these members. Press Ctrl and select these members. Select on that. Press your middle button on the mouse and I'll define this member. Make sure you zoom close to make sure to ensure your accuracy in defining your parameters. Now I've defined my first point. I'll come here and define my second point, and come all the way here and define my third point right here. Make sure you're accurate in point location. Select on that, right click, and click OK. Let's zoom out and check what we've done. We'll close this for now, and if you come here and try to turn this round, we'll be able to see actually what we've done is correct, absolutely correct, and everything is in the intended position. So this is how it looks. This is how our octagonal church look, or octagonal structure look. We'll move step by step till we get into the interior of this structure. So this is how this structure looks. This is how it looks. We can change the view, how we can switch to perspective view by double clicking on the screen. Then you come to projection here, you pick that option, click modify, click on OK, and you can try and view it from a perspective view. So this is how it looks from perspective. This is how it looks. And I think you can try similar thing by yourself. This is how it looks. Thanks a lot for watching this video or this channel, and please don't forget to subscribe to this channel if this is your first time and this is your first video to bump in. Please don't forget to subscribe. I'm Morris Dimba, and let's meet then. And let me first of all bring it back to auto mode. Click modify, apply, and give it an OK. This is how it looks. Never ever forget to save your work, and please don't forget to self distance away, because you never know, your neighbor might be having the virus, and please kindly be safe to avoid this COVID-19, the dangerous virus. And thanks a lot. I'm Morris Dimba. Let's meet then, and as we continue doing this simple structure and very interesting structure, if you intend to apply the same on your project, please just continue watching this, and bye bye. Let's meet then. Thank you.